Sarah Mitchell hunched against the cutting wind of Boston as she crossed the public garden on her way home. Her fingers, still aching after a 12-hour shift at Mass General Hospital, could barely hold her scarf against her face. It was snowing heavily on that January night, and the park was deserted. That's when she heard it, a faint cry, almost muffled by the snow. Sarah stopped, unsure if her exhausted mind was playing tricks. The sound came again, clearer this time. "Is anyone there?" she called, her voice trembling in the cold air. The crying responded, a thin, desperate whimper. Sarah followed the sound to a bench partially covered with snow, where a bundle of blankets shivered slightly. With her heart racing, she pushed aside the layers of fabric, revealing a small red face, eyes squeezed shut against the cold. "Oh my God," Sarah whispered, instinctively removing her gloves to check the child's temperature. Who would do this? The nurse scanned the empty park, looking for any sign of whoever had abandoned a baby on a night like this. There was no one, just the silence of falling snow. Without hesitation, Sarah wrapped the baby inside her own coat and ran to her small apartment 2 blocks away. Her hands trembled as she dialed emergency services. "I found an abandoned baby in the public garden," she explained, warming water for a lukewarm bath. "A little girl seems to be a few months old. She's conscious but very cold." The next few hours were a whirlwind. Police officers, social workers, forms. Sarah watched the little girl being examined by a colleague from pediatrics. "It's a miracle you passed by there, Sarah," Officer Thompson said. "No identification, no clue who the parents might be." "What will happen to her now?" asked Sarah, feeling an inexplicable tightness in her chest as she watched the baby now sleeping peacefully. "Foster system, probably. We'll try to locate the family, but..." Sarah didn't hear the rest. In her mind, she was already forming an impossible, senseless plan, and completely inevitable. "I can keep her. Temporarily, at least." The words came out before she could contain them. "I'm a pediatric nurse. I have training. I can take care of her while you look for the family." Miles away at the top of Reynolds Financial Tower, Jack Reynolds watched the same snowstorm through the floor-to-ceiling windows of his corporate penthouse. The numbers on his screen blurred as his tired eyes lost focus. Even at 10 o'clock at night, the 35-year-old CEO continued working. "Jack, the third quarter reports can wait until tomorrow," his assistant said, placing a cup of coffee next to his laptop. "Benjamin Steele didn't build a half-billion empire by leaving reports for the next day, Alice," Jack replied, without taking his eyes off the screen. Alice sighed, accustomed to her boss's obsession. 5 years ago, you still left the office before 6. Jack froze, his expression hardening. Alice realized her mistake too late. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to..." "It's fine," Jack interrupted her, his tone indicating otherwise. "That was before things change." When he was alone, Jack opened the bottom drawer of his desk, revealing a small carved wooden box. Inside, a faded photograph. A dark-haired woman smiled at the camera, one hand resting on her 5-month pregnant belly. Catherine. Kate. 5 years since she had disappeared, taking with her the baby he had never met. The police eventually filed the case as a voluntarily missing person. Jack never accepted that conclusion. They had argued the night before her disappearance, he, obsessed with work, she, begging for more attention, but Kate would never abandon their child. Something had happened. His growing fortune was silent testimony to the years he had spent burying his pain in relentless work. Private detectives, anonymous rewards, nothing had brought answers. Jack closed the box, once again stifling that part of himself. He returned to the numbers, which at least were predictable, controllable. Meanwhile, in a small apartment in Dorchester District, Sarah cradled a sleeping baby. In just 3 weeks, temporary guardianship had been approved, facilitated by her impeccable credentials and the shortage of available foster homes. "Emma," Sarah whispered to the girl. The name had come naturally. It was what her grandmother used to call her as a child. Emma Mitchell for now. 5 years passed. Sarah's small apartment now overflowed with colorful drawings and children's books. Emma had grown strong and healthy, with curious eyes and a contagious laugh. The adoption process had been finalized 3 years earlier, after no relatives came forward to claim her. Life remained financially tight. Double shifts at the hospital, student loans, expenses with a growing child. But on Sundays, like today, Sarah reserved the entire day for Emma. Sitting on a bench in Boston Common, she watched her daughter running with other children while checking messages from the hospital on her phone. "Hiya, Mummy! Look how high I'm going!" Emma shouted from the swing. That's when Sarah noticed the man, tall in an apparently expensive dark coat, observing the playground with a strange expression. Her protective instinct fired up. When Emma got off the swing and ran to the slide, the stranger began to approach. A few yards away, Jack Reynolds felt his heart hammering against his chest. He had come to the park just to clear his head before an important meeting nearby. Then he saw her, a girl about 5 years old, with curly brown hair and a small upturned nose identical to Kate's. And those eyes, the same amber eyes that stared back at him from the mirror every morning. Jack approached without thinking, observing every movement of the child. Her age matched. Her features were a perfect blend of him and Kate. It could be coincidence, but something deep told him it wasn't. "Can I help you?" Sarah's firm voice interrupted him. She had positioned herself between him and Emma, her arms crossed defensively. "I'm sorry, Jack stammered, realizing how suspicious he must look. "Your daughter reminded me of someone." Sarah narrowed her eyes. "Well, you're scaring both of us." "I apologize. My name is Jack Reynolds," he introduced himself formally, extending his hand. The name caused a flash of recognition in Sarah's eyes. The billionaire frequently appeared in Boston headlines. "Sarah Mitchell," she replied dryly, without shaking his hand. "Come on, Emma, time to go." As they walked away, Jack remained motionless, suddenly feeling nauseous. The girl had the same name that Kate wanted to give their daughter. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's world crumbled. Jack Reynolds had hired private investigators who discovered everything about Emma's rescue. Now in her office at Mass General, Sarah stared at a court summons and the results of a DNA test obtained from a hairbrush accidentally taken by Emma after a medical visit orchestrated by Jack. 99.998% probability of paternity. "He can't just appear after 5 years and take her," Sarah whispered to her attorney, Mark Donovan, a friend who had agreed to represent her pro bono. "Emma doesn't even know him." "It's complicated, Sarah. Technically, he never gave up his parental rights. And with his resources." 2 days later, Sarah and Jack sat on opposite sides of a cold conference room. Jack's lawyers explained that Catherine Sullivan had passed away in a car accident in Connecticut a few weeks after leaving Boston, but the baby had never been found. Local authorities had never connected the case to the baby discovered in Boston. "Ms. Mitchell saved Emma," Jack's attorney said in a calculated tone. "Mr. Reynolds acknowledges that and is grateful. But Emma is his daughter, and he has the legal right." "I've been her mother for 5 years," Sarah interrupted, her voice trembling. "She doesn't know any other reality." Jack, who had remained silent, finally spoke. "I don't want to traumatize her. I just want to know my daughter." The legal battle dragged on for months. Meanwhile, supervised visits were ordered. Emma, confused at first, soon became enchanted with the new friend, who brought elaborate gifts and spoke about her biological mother with gentle stories. Then, the unthinkable happened. Emma woke up one morning with a high fever and difficulty breathing. At the hospital, the diagnosis came quickly: severe pneumonia. For 3 agonizing days, Sarah and Jack kept vigil, their differences momentarily forgotten. "She has your determination," Jack commented softly on the 3rd night, watching Emma finally sleeping peacefully after the fever broke. Sarah studied the exhausted man beside her. "And your eyes. And your stubborn chin." Something silent passed between them, a mutual understanding born of shared love for a child. When Emma was discharged, something had fundamentally changed between Sarah and Jack. The day after the hospitalization, he appeared without warning at Sarah's small apartment, not with lawyers but with an unexpected proposal. "We could share custody," Jack suggested, avoiding her eyes. "No more legal battles." Sarah took a deep breath. "Emma needs stability. She can't bounce between such different worlds." "Then come live in one of my properties. A bigger place, near her school, with your own space." No commitments beyond Emma. Sarah's pride almost made her refuse immediately, but Emma's well-being came first. She accepted, with strict conditions. She would keep her job at the hospital. She would make daily decisions about Emma. Jack would have to learn to be a father gradually. In the months that followed, a new kind of family emerged. Jack learned to trade board meetings for school recitals. Sarah watched her daughter flourish with the love of two dedicated parents. Gradually, the distrust between them was replaced by respect, then by cautious friendship. One night, after Emma fell asleep, Jack confessed, "I thought getting her back would be enough to fill the void. I was wrong. You taught me that being a father is much more than DNA." Sarah smiled. "And you taught me that sometimes it takes more than one heart to complete a family." 8 years later, Emma, now an articulate 13-year-old, sat between Sarah and Jack at her middle school graduation ceremony. Her award-winning essay echoed through the auditorium. "My story begins with snow and ends with warmth. I was lost twice. First, when my birth mother left this world trying to protect me, and second, when I was left on a park bench by someone whose name I'll never know. But I was also found twice, by a woman brave enough to take me home on a winter night, and by a man determined enough to never stop looking for me. I grew up between two worlds that became one." That night, as Jack drove the three of them back home, Emma asleep in the back seat, Sarah realized that their makeshift family had finally found its perfect balance. Different beginnings had converged to create something new, something stronger than blood ties or circumstance. A family defined not by what they had lost, but by the love they had built together. Wow. You just followed the emotional journey of Sarah, Jack, and Emma. If this story about family, second chances, and unconditional love touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more narratives that will make you reflect and feel moved. Share in the comments what your favorite part was. Was it when Sarah found Emma in the snow, or perhaps the moment when Jack and Sarah finally began working together for their daughter's good? Every day, we bring new stories that capture the essence of what it means to love and overcome challenges. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of them. After all, as Emma discovered, sometimes the best families are those we build along the way.